Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time you're watching this video. And in this video, I would like to give you very detailed instructions on how you should write and create your CV. Let's get started. And please also rewatch this video if something is unclear to you. Turn back to the video to see different aspects of it, to get the comprehensive instructions so that you can advise it. So treat it as your tutorial, as instruction on how you need to create your CV. Okay, let's get it started. First of all, at the beginning, some general explanations about your CV. I want to start with the fact that usually your resume should be about one-pager. Of course, there are some exceptions, like in Germany or in other parts of the Europe or in Australia, for example, 2-page CVs are also allowed with a photo. But I would say that 90% of the CVs in consulting world are actually one-pager CVs and are of the template which I am providing to you in this video. Pay attention. You usually try to fit everything in your CV in just one page. I have seen so far so many mistakes. I have seen, 3 pages CV, even 4 pages. Sometimes if people have technical background, they tend to have even 5 pages CVs. Ladies and gentlemen, believe me, the recruiters will not even read your CVs if they are longer than 1 or maximum 2 pages. So try to squeeze everything in one page. And I want to show you how is that possible. So be concise and let's get started. Rule number 1. Your CV is one page and you are using conventional font types. For example, Arial or Times New Roman. And the font size should be at least 11 or even more. Feel free to play with the margins within the reason. Secondly, let's talk about the structure of your CV. Typically, there are several sections that are included in your CV. On top of your CV, you can see here John Smith as a dummy CV. So your contact details, you might be highlighting in your postal address or your email or your contact phone number or your LinkedIn. This is all optional and I leave it up to you what you would like to highlight in your contact details. This was number 1 on top of the resume. Then your CV should include professional experience and education. It is already very good if you have some working experience which could be relevant for a consultant. Then I would strongly recommend you to start with your professional work experience section. Otherwise, if you are just coming fresh out of the school, from university or business school or MBA, then of course you can also start with your education. So these are the first 2 sections in your CV. Then the next one is usually some extracurricular and leadership experience. And last but not least, you can conclude with some of the additional skills and awards. I would also generally recommend you that for every experience that you are mentioning on your resume, you clearly state your role or degree, as well as organization and dates when have you been working. For example, company XYZ, city, country, time and dates, and of course, position. Then let's talk about the bullet points for every section, whether it's a work experience or whether it's education or leadership and your extracurricular activities. So every bullet point, please try to start, especially in your work experience, try to start it with an actional verb in the past indefinite tense. For example, analyzed, designed, developed, solved, established, managed, or led, reduced, or boosted, etc. These are the verbs which consultants are looking for. And also try to make sure that each of your bullet points in your working experience is trying to highlight balanced mix of one of the following skills. So either your analytical skills or your problem-solving skills, leadership skills, entrepreneurial drive, or your client management skills, maybe stakeholder management, or some of your personal skills or interpersonal skills and personal impact. Please also make sure that your bullet points, no matter whether it's your professional experience or your education or your leadership experience, that they are also quantifying the impact using so-called consulting language. What I mean by this is that your bullet points include as many facts, figures, numbers, percentages, or maybe monetary values like euros or US dollars, etc., as possible. So please don't focus. One of the most common mistakes which I see so often in the CVs is that people are describing with gerunds, using the gerunds like processing or analyzing instead of using the verbs in past indefinite tense like analyzed, processed, designed, developed. People also focusing more on the process side. But in consulting CVs, the processes are not that interesting. So recruiters are looking for a tangible and quantifiable impact that you have created. And for the results, for the outcomes of your work, instead of looking just for the processes. I hope that it's clear now for you in the overview. And in the next part, I'm now going to have a look in more detail on every section to give you very detailed instructions on how to create your personal information, your education section, your work experience section, your extracurricular achievements, as well as additional skills and awards. So now let's have a look on how all these sections in particular should be structured with some of the examples. Let's imagine that you are just coming from an MBA or university degree, so you're a fresh graduate from the school. And that's why this is probably the last and the most relevant experience. And that's why you might be starting with an education section. What are the things that are important for the education section? Recruiters are always looking in education for exceptionally good people. So for someone who was academically very great, who was among the best of the best. That's why please highlight your GPA at all times for every degree, especially if you have a very high GPA. Of course, if your GPA is not that great or mediocre, then just miss it out. Don't highlight it. But if you do have a very good GPA, use it to your advantage. Then the next point is to showcase also your awards, scholarships, and grants to showcase your competitiveness. So, for example, you have received only 10 awards for 1,000 students are given, or you was awarded with a scholarship as 1 out of 100 people, for example. And then you can also highlight your dissertation, thesis listed, especially if the topic is relevant for consulting. So now let's have a look on the example of one of the candidates, how he or she did this one. So as you see here on the bottom of the screen, there is a higher education section, and the candidate has graduated from ESCP Business School, which is among top 10 European business schools, according to Financial Times ranking. You see, among top 10 is again quantifiable impact, which the candidate is showcasing here. He or she used to study in London, Paris, and Berlin, so which showcases that this was an international study, which is another plus for the candidate. And then he mentions city and country. Then the degree, Masters of Business Administration, French and German MBA degree. Then the grades, 16 GPA, 16.6 out of 20, which is among top 10% of the class. So it means that the candidate is really outstanding. Then the thesis is evaluated. So economic analysis of consumption pattern changes due to COVID-19 to build business strategies. Case of BRIC nations. So as you see, it also highlights economic analysis. Basically, the analytical skills of the candidate are shown here. Then he also highlights his personal achievements, elected as a student ambassador, head of global MBA student community for a student body of over 100 people. Or basically you can write for the student body of 100 plus students. That would be even better. And then the candidate is also highlighting the award. He was the winner of European Business Simulation Game, which is also great. So as you see, even from that specific example, it already illustrates what kind of super achievements the candidate was able to bring. So therefore, Whenever possible, please also try to highlight how good you were in your academic years and in your achievements. Try to insert as much facts, figures, numbers, percentages, or monetary values into that as much as you can. Showcase that your GPA was way above average and that you was among top 5, top 10% of the class, for example, whatever is applicable to you. So these are the clear instructions for you. Please do follow them. Did you get it so far? Then let's move to the next section, namely to the work experience. What are the things that recruiters are looking for in your work experience? There are typically 3 points. First of all, just make sure that this section, especially if you are an experienced professional, if you have already some relevant experience and used to work before your education, then your work experience section should be even above the education. So you should start with your work experience section. And this section should list at least 2 to 4, sometimes maybe even 5 most relevant experience that you as a candidate have for consulting to be offered. You can even miss some of the less impactful experiences. For example, your old internships or some of the experiences which are not that relevant for consulting. Then, number 2, each experience should be detailed in 3 to 5 bullet points. Especially the last work experience could be, for example, 5 bullet points. And the previous experiences could be consistently having 3 bullet points. Make sure that your bullet points are not too long. They need to be just 2-liners. Please don't 1 or 2-liners. Don't write 3, 4, 5 lines in your bullet points because recruiters will not be able to read and process this. So this will be a KO criteria. Therefore, just make sure that you have consistently 3 to maximum 5 bullet points in your experiences and that those bullet points are just 2-liners or maybe 1-liner. Be concise. And then, once again, I cannot really stress it too much. Focus not on the process when you are describing your activity, but focus on the results and on the outcomes of your activity. And please use the so-called consulting language. What I mean by this is that you need to make sure that your bullet points are starting with an action verb in the past indefinite tense, like designed, analyzed, improved, whatsoever. And quantifiable impact to your bullets. So namely, add more facts, figures, numbers, percentages, values, monetary values like USD or euros, etc. to your bullet points. Now let's have a look on how does the candidate did this for her profile. This candidate, she used to work for Reverse Logistics Group as an external strategy consultant. Away the location, so here on the top left side, you see the job designation and location, and then on the right side, you see the geography plus the dates. And then let us have a look in detail on how did the candidate describe her experience with the company. As you see, build product strategy for a web platform to manage the recycling of e-waste produced by top tech companies in Europe and gathering requirements from 10 plus clients. Here you see build, actionable verb in past indefinite tense. Product strategy, which already means that it sounds like a consulting job designation. And then after gathering requirements from 10 plus clients. Here are the quantifiable impacts that the candidate is highlighting. Then the next bullet point, established a market entry strategy for patent product to acquire the market of 500 million US dollars in the US to manage the disposal of wastes created by food and beverage packaging industry. A very good point because established a verb in the past indefinite tense, a market entry strategy, which is a typical consulting job, and then the objective or the impact which it has created with notifiable facts to acquire the market of 500 million US dollars in the US. That's really great example because it showcases the quantifiable impact. I'm pretty sure, this candidate has success in being invited to several interview invites simply through phrasing all the things in the right manner. Then experience or bullet point number 3, designed business models with sustainability strategies for Nike and Sony aimed to reduce CO2 equivalent impact by 50% by 2022 and increase profit margins by 10%. It's really great example because designed business models. So again, the verb in the past indefinite tense. Aimed to reduce CO2 equivalent impact by 50% by 2022. A very quantifiable impact. Again, so backed up by facts, figures, numbers, percentages. And increase profit margins by 10%. Again, great example. Even, I want to stress, of course, you might be saying, oh, Andre, I don't know. I have a different background. So I used to work as an engineer, or I used to work as a doctor, or I used to be a singer, or I have a different background. How can I phrase it? Then just simply focus on what you have done in your past job experiences and try to showcase this as if it was consulting skills. What have you analyzed in your job? Maybe some processes. Maybe you have improved the operational efficiency by 10%. Or maybe you have analyzed the process side. Or I had a doctor in the past who described his emergency shifts as led the team of 5 doctors and nurses in the ambulance and achieved patient recovery rate of 85% under my shift. You see, even the doctors who have nothing to do with consulting can showcase their relevant experience in 1 or 2 lines, highlighting and quantifying the impact of that for you in a consulting-friendly manner. Try to do this exactly in the same way. And then just to give you a few other examples, so the candidate also writes, developed a go-to-market strategy in his second experience for IoT-based product, focused on ROI and market attractiveness to acquire 30% market share. So you see again, developed, then go-to-market strategy, which both means that he used to be working on consulting specific tasks, ROI as a term, and then aiming to receive 30% market share. Great examples. And I also hope that my instructions are now clear and you can rewrite your bullet points, make them shorter in 1 or 2 lines, make them concise. Let them start with the action verb in the past indefinite tense, and also add the quantifiable impacts like facts, figures, numbers, percentages. And this you do for all the bullet points. Every bullet point should be based on the facts, figures, numbers, and percentages. So please make your CV consistent. And now let's move on to the next section. So now let's talk about your extracurricular and leadership achievements. Basically, this section should be containing 1 to 3 experiences, and each experience is detailed using 1 to 2, maximum 3 bullet points. I can also give you some of the examples what could be good materials for this section. For example, at the university, you have been leading a university club or a society. Or you have been leading the team at the case competition, or you had a leading role in a charity and was able to gather, 0.5 million in funds. Or you were very active in a political party, or you founded a side business and a startup, or you build up an app or a website or a physical project. Or you have been working also part-time to finance your studies, or holding editorial roles in academic journals, or being invited as a speaker to conferences, or being active as a board member for charity, etc. And please bear in mind that these bullet points that you're writing for your leadership and extracurricular achievements, please write them in the same way if it was your work experience. So using the logic previously described in the section of professional experience. Let me just give you an example of what the candidate has done. So for example, this candidate has been working at Dassault Systems and was head of cultural department. So that person led the team of 40 people or 40 plus people to manage company level event with 0.5 million budget. So you see, again, led, the verb in the past indefinite tense. The team of 40 plus people, and then event with 0.5 million in budget. Or that person has also planned and managed quarterly outings and offsites for 1,000 plus people. Again, quantifiable impact. And here you also see on the right side a city, country, and then the dates. As you see, this leadership experience actually sounds like already your work experience, right? Can you see this? So please make sure that your leadership and extracurricular activities are specified and written in the same format, okay? So now, finally, let's move to the last section about additional skills and awards. And this section could be covering some of your skills, for example, your languages, your IT skills, or your hobbies, maybe sometimes also some of your volunteering work or other stuff which didn't manage to get into the previous 3 sections. For example, for instance, your languages should be also highlighting in the level of fluency that you have, and your IT skills should include the programming languages if you have any. So for example, Python, R, Java, HTML, whatsoever. But this is not very necessary. I mean, some of you will be having just Microsoft Office and PowerPoint and Excel. So these are the 2 most important skills that you actually need for consulting. Everything else is just a good add-on. And then in your hobbies or in your personal interests, you can also highlight quantifiable impacts, especially in the sports if we're talking about it. Let me just give you a very short example of the last section, which is mentioned here on the bottom of the page. So your languages, the candidate knows English at the native language, Hindi, native, German, intermediate, and Dutch, beginner. The level of language proficiency are mentioned in the brackets, and you put the most relevant languages first according to your country preferences. Of course, if you are, for example, a foreigner applying at one of the European countries, it is always beneficial that you know the language of that country. For example, that candidate used to apply in Germany and in the Netherlands. That's why he also highlighted the level of proficiency in German and Dutch languages. Then, in the next bullet point, the candidate is highlighting in IT skills. Python, VBA, SQL, scripting, Jira, Tableau, Power BI, etc. Even highlighting in the level of proficiency, such as advanced. If you don't know these IT skills, don't stress yourself. I think in most of the cases, Microsoft PowerPoint and Excel or Microsoft Office should be already good enough if you highlight them in your IT skills. And then your personal interests. So that candidate was a lead singer and percussionist in the band since 9 years. So again, this is like highlighting in the personal impact. And mountain biking enthusiast, wildlife photographer, personal motivator, and coach. Sometimes people are also writing about traveling, and then in brackets they could write like backpacked 27 countries in 6 months, or visited 35 cities in 3 years, quantifying the impact. Or if you are playing sports, I don't know, tennis, cricket, football, basketball, whatsoever, especially if you have been competing and winning, mention this, all the awards that you have been having. Or if you have been the captain, for example, of a basketball team, this is a great experience because it can also showcase your leadership skills. So now, as you see, I just want to highlight to you one more time all the necessary things, once again, which you need to be having in your CV. First of all, the structure. It is consisting of your personal information, of your education section, of your work experience section, your extracurricular sections, as well as your additional skills and interests. And then try to fit everything in just one page using most conventional verbs. Every bullet should be described in the actionable verb, and just make sure that every bullet has quantifiable results, not just the process, but is highlighting the impact the way I have just described this to you in this video, and is also showcasing one of your major skills: analytical, problem solving, entrepreneurial, personal impact, etc. Focus on the most relevant skills and on the most relevant experience. If you have any questions, please rewatch again this video, and then also create your own CV according to the structure that I have just showcased and highlighted to you. And then reach out to us. Once your CV has been created and modified, feel free to reach out to our client service in order to get the review of your documents by one of our experts. And we would be more than happy to help you and to answer your questions and to go through your CV and your cover letter together. And in the following videos, I will also showcase to you a few examples of bad CVs so that you know the difference, and a few examples of really very good CVs which managed it to receive the interview invites, in order to explain the differences one more time. So thank you very much for watching. If you need any additional information, rewatch the video. And once you have created your own CV and cover letter and these documents are finalized from your side so that you're ready to review them, then please get in touch with our customer service in order to arrange the session with one of our experts, and we will be more than willing to help you. See you in the next video. Take care.